Hello, this is the Stories Beside channel. I release videos every day for you. Subscribe and click the bell. A woman strolling leisurely down the street on a summer evening could be described as 40 years old at a glance, and only a very attentive eye could tell that. In fact, she was hardly older than 35. The graying of her temples and wrinkles in the corners of her eyes added to her age. It was hard to see the wrinkles, though. Her eyes were covered by sunglasses, though it was a cloudy day. Long blonde bangs fell down over her face, but it was hardly a fashion statement. It was more likely that the woman didn't care what she looked like. The street she was walking on ended in a dead end. There, the local homeless had set up a shelter, a sort of tent camp. The location was perfect. Everything necessary for life was there. The river was nearby, and one could bathe in it, or even fetch some water. Not particularly clean, of course, but there was no other after all. Just across the river, as far as one could see, lay the city dump, an El Dorado. The dump was the breadwinner for those who had nothing to live on. It was here that all the stale goods, not only from the stores, but also from the restaurants, ended up. And it was always possible to get some kind of clothes. Even medicine was available, and quite often. Of course, in the city, this street and the entire neighborhood, and most of all, the tent city, were notorious for their bad reputation. But only those who had never been there judged it that way. Residents of the neighborhood initially resented the homeless communal apartment and tried to fight it, but then tired to write complaints to the administration and put up with such a neighborhood. And the homeless, in gratitude, tried to behave decently. At least they didn't cause a riot and drank only in their own territory. The result was quite a peaceful coexistence. From time to time, new faces appeared in the tent city. So with the beginning of spring, this woman settled there. Who was she, and where did she come from? That remained a mystery to everyone. She never told anyone her name, and she never became friends with anyone. She spoke little and only out of necessity, but she searched the landfill not only for food and clothing, but also for books. At first, this shocked the neighbors, but when the woman gradually built up a small library, they began to lend her books. She willingly shared, and you could say she started a new fashion. Deprived of TV and the internet, the homeless found in books everything they lacked in everyday life. New impressions, interesting reflections, finally, beautiful speech without rudeness and profanity. Books also gave them new things to talk about. The readers now exchanged impressions and quite often sat for long discussions, sometimes quite heated. Then, after looking at the newcomer, the homeless concluded that she had most likely recently become homeless. It wasn't just her love of reading that indicated this. There were also more trivial things. For example, an unquenchable desire for cleanliness. The woman washed her clothes in the river and bathed daily, regardless of the weather, and probably suffered some serious blow of fate. Her reticence and unwillingness to make friends was an indication of this. The homeless people had had enough of this information, and in the end they left their silent neighbor alone. Walking in the evening was one of the woman's favorite pastimes. For some reason, she often wanted to be among people. In the beginning of her life in the tent city, she even came to sit with her neighbors by the fire, but she quickly realized she did not like it there. The homeless people were pestering her with talk, and their sociability increased in proportion to the amount they drank. Both the drinking and the talking made her sick. But walking down the street, among passersby just like her, was great. No one here cared about her. You walk along, and people rush by who don't ask questions, and yet you manage to feel you're not alone. The flow of people is moving, and you are with them. The routes of her walks changed every day. She had no favorite places, or maybe she didn't want them. It was as if she consciously avoided any, even the most insignificant attachments, and carefully nurtured her freedom from them. This time, she crossed her neighborhood unnoticed and found herself in the center of the city. The center was fine for a walk, too. There were always plenty of people there, and that was all she needed. The only thing that got on my nerves was the constant noise and the abundance of cars. Now the woman was standing at an intersection, waiting for a green light. The yellow light was on, but the drivers were going so fast that it was clear that not everyone was going to stop. The eternal problem of big cities. People here never let go of the habit of rushing. It's as if everyone is feverish, everyone has no time, and everyone thinks, "I'll pass unnoticed, I'll save a few minutes." And even pedestrians, standing at the crossing, are nervous, shifting from foot to foot, as if this will make the cherished green light come on faster. The woman unwittingly noted that her neighbors on the sidewalk, a respectable middle-aged man, an old doctor lady with a giant backpack on her shoulders, and a girl about 11 or 12, tried to stay away from her. It was hardly her poor, but quite neat clothes or her untidy hair. Just a feeling of loneliness enveloped the woman like a protective cocoon, keeping her away. And those around her probably sensed it. The yellow light finally blinked and switched, and the traffic light began its tedious song. The traffic light is green. It's okay to cross the street. The pedestrians moved along the zebra almost simultaneously. But the teenage girl was still one step ahead of the others. Kids are always rushing around. The woman grinned, looking at the girl, and in the next moment she cried out, grabbed her by the scruff of the neck, and tugged at her, dragging her onto the sidewalk. The bus that came around the corner rushed past with a roar. The woman was breathing heavily. The girl didn't immediately understand what had happened, but when she saw the bus rushing away, she groaned softly and pressed her hand to her mouth. Oh, thank you. Apparently only now did she realize that she was miraculously unharmed. The woman reached into the girl's ear and pulled out a black button earpiece. "Turn off the music at the crosswalks and keep your eyes open," she said. The girl's eyes were still frightened. "Now come on, we can go now," said her savior. But the girl stayed where she was. "My daddy is a rich man," she said. "Is that so? Well, congratulations." The woman's lips were smiling, but the tone with which she spoke the words was dry and indifferent. "No, you misunderstood me. I didn't mean to brag. It's just that we can go to my father now, and he'll be sure to thank you. He's a generous man, and I can see that it's not far from here. Over there." She pointed to a small, 2 stories high, but long building. "In that clinic. Is your dad a doctor?" "He's the owner," the girl shrugged. "But so is the doctor, the head doctor. Shall we?" The woman pulled her dark glasses down over the tip of her nose for a moment and looked intently at the brick building of the clinic. She suddenly became visibly animated, and evil lights flashed in her eyes. "Come on," she said, and put her glasses back on. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. No, no, and no. The golden-haired receptionist in the chief physician's office was nervous. "Chris won't see you. Even me." The girl was surprised, and without any transition shouted, "Daddy, Daddy, your secretary won't let me in and says." The office door swung open, and the girl quickly slipped inside. Immediately, there was a deafening ringing sound. "She broke the cup," said the golden-haired fairy blankly. "That's what it means to pamper children unnecessarily. What's your name?" "Kelly. Does it matter?" "No." The fairy sighed and fluffed her beautiful curls with her hands. "But it's easier to communicate if you know the name." "Well, Kelly, you can't spoil children the way Chris does." Kelly shrugged her shoulders. "What's wrong with a father loving his daughter?" "Nothing," agreed the secretary. "I don't think he loves her that much. He indulges her every whim and doesn't come home for weeks. He's out clubbing. He's out with girls, always young, always drunk." "Are you," Kelly asked with interest, "allowed to talk about your boss that way? What if he finds out? From me, for instance, and fires you? Who would believe you?" The girl answered nonchalantly, "You are nobody. You just came in off the street. And even more, you're not well off. You have a lot of problems in your life. You can tell everything by your shabby clothes." Kelly wanted to say something back, But at that moment, a girl ran out of the office. "It's all right," she informed Kelly. "Daddy's busy right now, so we'll wait. Let me show you the hospital, okay? It's cool. All the local nobles are treated here. And if anyone comes at us, we'll tell them you're my babysitter." Kelly looked at the girl curiously. "For your age, you are an exceptionally smart little girl. What's your name?" "Christina." The girl readily introduced herself. "And you kept waiting, you ask, or didn't you?" The woman smiled, and the smile this time was warm and affectionate. She reached out and fixed the girl's disheveled hair. "See," she asked. "So, Christina, will you show me this bourgeois lair?" The man in charge never showed up from his office. "Here," Christina pointed out, "we have rooms for VIPs. Yeah, and we don't have any other rooms. But Dad says that every rich man wants to feel like a respected customer, not just a sack of money. And the service is basically the same everywhere." Kelly couldn't resist another short chuckle. "I see your father has let you in on all the secrets. You must be his princess, right?" "I guess," the girl answered, but there was sadness in her voice. "Princess, when he thinks of me." "He." "Christina," a man's voice called out, and the girl looked around. A tall man hurried across the corridor toward them. "Hello, Andrew," the girl said politely. "I'd like you to meet." "I know who it is." He smiled. "It's your savior, Kelly." "I'm sorry." "Kelly, is it?" "I'm the head of the trauma unit. Chris is insanely grateful for saving his daughter and told me to tell you that as a reward he can hire you as a janitor." "Who?" Christina's eyes, already large and expressive, became huge. "Christina," the superintendent said embarrassedly. "I'm just relaying my father's words. Your new acquaintance can come to work for us. You can live in the back room, in case, unless, of course, Kelly needs a place to live. There's always some food in the dining room." "Kelly, don't be angry with me for being so blunt, but it's obvious that I'm a bum," the woman asked sharply. "Well, yes, let's say you are not mistaken. And your boss is ready to hire a man without documents. I merely conveyed Inakrisi Ilyich's proposal to you." The doctor pronounced every syllable. I could see that he didn't like the whole story himself. "There's no need to point out to me the frivolity of a decision not taken by me. Decide whether you want to work for us or not." "Kelly," the girl voiced, "you'd better take it. You'll have a roof over your head and a paycheck. Not much, but every month. And they'll always feed you." The woman pressed her lips together tightly. Her facial features became harsh. "Okay," she said curtly. "Tell your superiors we have a deal." "That's fine." The man smiled tautly. "You'll get your uniform from the hostess." He left, clearly happy to be able to wrap up this conversation. "Don't pay attention to your father's antics," Christina advised. "The main thing is that now you have a place to live, and there will be money." The nurse looked at Kelly with ill-concealed animosity. In their clinic, there were no random people, and even for a cleaning job was not easy to get. Chief Hole competition invented for candidates who wash the floor in the treatment room, who at any angle does not leave a dusty. The head of the department had to have a higher education diploma. Who knows why? At times it seemed that Chris had made up all these trials just to watch the women in need try funny and want to impress. And the women were trying. It's hard to say why. The salary of a cleaner could not be called high, and with the system of fines, again, it was the chief physician's idea. She was left with horns and legs. Still, there was no shortage of applicants. Most likely so appealing acted the very name of this, the most prestigious and expensive in the city, clinic. And of course, their petty interests, too, each had. Some hoped to make useful acquaintances among doctors. Some counted on drugs and treatment at a discount. There were also those who pinned their hopes on wealthy patients. Young, pretty girls belonged to this category. They did not yet know that the clients, though there were rich bachelors among them, were used to ignoring the attendants. And then, the nurse hummed to herself, some miracle of miracles. Some ungroomed tramp came in, and she was accepted at once, without any competition. Here, she handed Nika a folded hospital uniform. Change your clothes and tidy up your hair. You're not supposed to walk around here disheveled. And one more thing. Kelly, who was about to leave. I don't know how our chief received you, but remember, it's dangerous to get carried away here. Don't think too much. He'll kick you out just as he hired you, and you can always think of a reason. Don't let him see you again, understand? Especially in the morning. Can I do it in the evening? Kelly grinned. In the evening, that's all right, but not in the morning. The chief physician is a gambler. If he wins at night, he just comes in sleepy. And if he loses, he's as sleepy and angry as a dog. You have to admit, it's worse. You get caught in the heat of the moment. And, well, don't get caught. The clinic was like a fine-tuned clockwork machine. The organization was top-notch. At 6 in the morning cleaning began. At 7 came the first patients, and the excitement did not stop until 9 in the evening. At 10:30, most of the staff went home. The attitude toward the new cleaner was a little strange at first. Eat in the canteen for free, they told her. But look, don't steal food from the distribution. Don't steal drugs, they're all on the books. Don't drain the detergents, they should last until the end of the month. Damn it all. Kelly listened to the advice in amazement, and she couldn't understand why they all thought she should steal everything that wasn't good. Could it be because she was untidy? But hadn't they, these glossy doctors and beautiful nurses, ever been without money? Probably not. Otherwise, they wouldn't have acted like that. Wouldn't they have shown the least bit of sympathy? She didn't respond to their endless, "don't steal." Or rather, she allowed herself a murderous chuckle, but never said a word. She did her job flawlessly, so they soon left her behind. She knew how to achieve that. The homeless people in the tent city had finally given up on her too, with their inquiries. The worst test was the visits of the chief physician's wife. Fortunately, she came to visit her husband very rarely, but on those days the entire staff tried not to show themselves in the corridor without an absolute necessity. At first glance, this tall, blue-eyed blonde seemed like an angel who had descended from heaven. A wonderful smile, a perfectly straight back, a face with no signs of age. Plastic surgeons in her case worked perfectly. The girl could be 18 years old or 30, but only her passport knew the truth. A gentle, melodious voice and the grace of a ballerina. Her voice, in truth, was quick to turn from gentle to shrill, with horrible hysterical notes. It happened every time she came into the clinic. It started with some insignificant little thing, like too hot coffee. And then the scandal grew, gained momentum, and now it was impossible to pass by the office of the chief physician without plugging your ears. "She's a fool," the landlady's sister explained simply. In time, she began to feel something like a friendly sympathy for Mecca. The new janitor was not talkative, efficient, but most importantly, she never ingratiated herself to anyone. This inspired respect. The chief doctor foolishly married her. "For prestige," she continued. Kelly raised an eyebrow. "For what?" "Well, yes," the nurse replied confidently. "She's some kind of Miss Something. Oh, she won the city beauty contest. I hoped that now from London and Paris would come to fight for her, but something went wrong. The only people who fought for her were the local bohemians, and that was just a little bit, not seriously. It seems that she was the mistress of the owner of the city market. Then she left him for a plastic surgeon, and so she got to ours. That's true, she was lucky with her lovers. She should be like that. But she's got a temper, God forbid. You saw it yourself. It's just that she was forgiven for her beauty. Actually, she was prettier back then. Now she's got Botox and silicone in her. Well, I guess it's like Silicon Valley. She doesn't want kids. She's afraid of her figure." "And Christina?" Kelly asked. "So she's not her own daughter. Innocent is a daughter, from her first marriage. It's an old story," she sighed. "And sad. His wife was an orphan, worked as a surgeon, and not one of the last. So she gave birth to Christina. And then, the baby was a year old at the time. She was locked up. It's kind of a murky story. They said she was selling illegal substances on the side. Somewhere in jail, that poor woman died. Well, our main man didn't grieve long and got married to a new one. But I don't think he needs her much either. He's out and about, all nights in casinos, with girls, with booze. I wonder, Kelly stretched out, how is it that he works with this way of life, and no one has ever set him up? And that, the nurse said meaningfully, is a separate conversation. What did he do right? Each department has its own head. Innocent could have been out of a job, but it was not. Gathers dirt on everyone. That's his main job. And everyone is afraid to say a word against him. There's something zest about her. That new broad, Kelly heard one day. She'd been working at the clinic for a month, but the talk about her never stopped. The head doctor's decision to hire an undocumented homeless woman was too strange. Kelly walked quietly toward the smoking room, where the voices were coming from. The radiologist was standing in the smoking room, and he was accompanied by someone else standing in the back. Looking closely, Kelly recognized the head of the trauma unit. Remember when she first came here, everyone was trying to give her a verbal kick. And now what? They almost stand at attention when she walks by. And you, the supervisor grinned. And me, the radiologist admitted, slightly embarrassed. I don't know what the hell it is, but it makes me want to jump up and hands at my seams. Crazy. Delirious. He held the smoke in his mouth and then exhaled it into the ceiling. It came out thick and white, like a cloud on a frosty day. Crazy, buddy. But for some reason I feel the same way. Kelly didn't listen any further. A satisfied smirk played on her lips. Janitors, though they work just as hard as, or maybe even harder than, the rest of us, are invisible creatures. One gets used to their presence like one's own shadow, or the presence of a pet. And now, in front of the cleaners, work issues are discussed, gossip is disseminated, and personal telephone conversations are held during working hours. Kelly was never offended. She didn't care. Did you notice? The nurses whispered. She's a rinse person, but she knows about medications like a doctor. Any contraindications, side effects, analogs, by heart. The grandmother in room 7 wouldn't come out of the bathroom until our cleanliness fairy told us that the side effects of the drug drotaverine include polyuria. And there was a girl in 5 who couldn't digest all her bees. And Kelly was like, try these shots, and you'll get it right away. Maybe she comes from a family of doctors. Who can tell? She doesn't talk to anybody. It's a character thing. She only opens her mouth when she has something to say. I was afraid at first, the third admitted, that she would start carrying drugs. She looked so unreliable. She was all in her head, not paying attention to anyone. I thought she was a junkie for sure. But no, she didn't even steal one of her ascorbic acid. I also once tried to count drugs in front of her, on purpose. I wanted to see how she'd react. And how? I didn't. She only said that people often complain about Prometal, as it clouds the mind. And then she went on to mop the floors. Kelly, not paying any attention to the girls, walked past them. The girls were frightened to silence. Maybe she's deaf, one of them whispered. It's like she can't hear anything. Why did Christopher hire her in the first place? As if there weren't enough cleaners in town. There's a secret here. He wouldn't take just anyone. Maybe she's a convict. Yeah, came back a muffled voice. It's fashionable now that the criminals live in the back rooms. Think about what you're saying. She's his mistress, someone chuckled. Christopher got tired of models, so he hooked up with this Moni. She'll hear you. He won't hear me, I'm quiet. But Kelly heard everything. She stopped, turned to face the girls, and gave each of them a long, scornful look. You're not paid to cluck. You'd better get back to work. The girls could not find anything to say and silently scattered to their rooms. Kelly walked quickly into the back room and pulling off her thick, rubber gloves, tossed them in the corner. How tired she is of all these whispers. Is it so hard for everyone to mind their own lives and not poke their noses into someone else's? At least not without a direct request. And after all, we don't have surgeons on site right now. It's late at night. Take him to another hospital. She heard a shout from the corridor. What other one? We won't get him there, was another voice, confused and helpless. Kelly went out into the corridor. There was a man lying in the waiting room, right on the expensive leather couch. Next to him stood two others. The nurses, huddled together in a frightened flock, chirped something or other. He was seriously stabbed. It counts in minutes. And you say, "We don't have any surgeons, you know." The young receptionist was tearing up. "There's no one. Everyone's home. What do we do now?" "Well, there's a hospital here. Where else can we take him?" Kelly ran to the wounded man, felt for a pulse on his neck. Her movements were collected and precise. "It's fading," she said softly. "Get the operating room ready. I'll help him." "Who is going to operate?" One of the sisters barely spoke out. "Me, and let's not argue." Kelly gave the girl her trademark grin. "We'll argue later." "But you're a janitor. He's bleeding internally," barked at the sisters Kelly. "He'll die if he's not." "Anesthesia. Now." The girls looked at each other, but still hurried to the operating room. Gurney continued to give orders to Kelly. "Help me move him. Men, don't shake him. He'll bleed to death." Like a log, they took it and moved it. They, like everyone else around them, silently obeyed the woman's orders. "Look, you'll be responsible for everything," the receptionist muttered. Kelly did not dignify her with a reply. The bright cold light of the lamp, the coldness of the instruments, the screen. And Kelly felt calm and focused detachment. She was in her seat now. "So what's the bottom line?" Chris stretched out lazily, leafing through the file. He closed the folder and pushed it toward Kelly. "The patient was admitted in critical condition, but now he feels quite well and is not life-threatening. You sit down. There's no truth in it." He nodded at the visitor's chair. Kelly remained standing. She just put her hands in her pockets and tilted her head slightly to the side, letting her know she was ready to listen. "Suit yourself," the head doctor shrugged. "Then let's continue. The patient feels well. And why?" "Because," he thumped the table with his hand and broke into a shout, "that some scavenger slave has got nerve enough to take up the operation. Do you realize what you've done, you wretch? If he had died here. He's alive, and that makes a difference," Kelly said without raising her voice. She watched the chief physician's hysteria without fear, and even with some curiosity. "I'll put you in jail," Chris kept yelling. "You could have put us all of us, in a nunnery. That's where you belong, okay? And I'll take care of it." Kelly unhurriedly pulled her glasses off the bridge of her nose and tossed back her bangs. She'd looked at the world through tinted lenses for so long, and now the daylight hurt her eyes. Like when, years ago, when she'd had to be born a second time, and not of her own free will. Kelly was born into a family of doctors and was a late only child. Perhaps that's why her long-awaited child was cherished by her parents as a gift from heaven. Never had she seen so much adoration for a child, neither from her school friends, nor later from her university friends. The dream of her parents was that Kelly continued the dynasty and went to medical school, although the girl was more fond of painting. But she didn't want to disappoint her parents. The only thing she insisted on was to be a surgeon. "Surgery is not a woman's business, child," my father sighed. "It takes nerves of steel and a steady hand." Kelly kissed the old man on his wrinkled cheek. "Then I'll do," she said cheerfully. That's all the talk. The girl was always stubborn. She was an excellent surgeon, by the way. The only thing left was to get married and have a couple of kids. The parents knew that Kelly was unlikely to listen to their opinion, but they secretly hoped that she would be interested in the son of their longtime friends. Mark was an ideal future husband for Nikki. He came from a good family, had a brilliant education. In addition, he was the only heir to his parents' fortune. There was no need to worry about his interest in money. Kelly, upon learning of this, became enraged and threatened to leave home. She wasn't going to let her parents interfere in her personal life, and more importantly, she was already in love with someone else. Christopher, or Chris, as his friends called him, was the kind of bad boy that makes good girls lose their heads. Chris had 1 million casual girlfriends and 1 million gambling debts. He was a reckless party boy with a guitar and poems and flowery toasts to beautiful ladies. He also had a chiseled profile and long bangs that fell over his gray eyes. Girls were invariably drawn to remove that strand, to look into his eyes, and Chris knew it. He had a mischievous, cheerful look in his eyes, but he could also give it another expression, one of underlying sadness and fatigue. So he was becoming immensely talented and jaded by his otherness, a romantic who was already desperate to meet a soulmate. In addition, he had a remarkable ability to listen, which quickly earned himself a reputation for sensitivity and understanding. All these qualities worked without fail on girls, and a girl from a good family, Kelly, was no exception. She was too young to realize that characters like her lover were best admired from a distance. Upon learning that Nick had already looked for a successful fiancé, Chris immediately proposed marriage to the girl. Before she agreed, she glimpsed that for married life, such as Chris, is a controversial option. But who stops it when the heart flutters with the heat of love? The girl's parents accepted their son-in-law reluctantly. "I don't like this boy," admitted the girl's mother. "He's 5 years older than Nicky, but he has no success in his profession. And the cards. He's a gambling man, and those often end badly." Kelly frowned, but didn't say anything back. Deep down, she knew her mother was right. But how she wanted to believe in a fairy tale where anything was possible. Romantic tramps and gamblers become devoted husbands without losing their charm. And good girls become adventurers, but remain decent and honest. The mother, seeing that her daughter hesitated, hastily added, "It's not like anyone's telling you not to get married. Go out with him again. Get a better look at him." Kelly fluttered her arms guiltily. "I don't have a choice anyway. I'm expecting a child with him." Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. "Let's open our own clinic," my husband suggested. Kelly looked at him with a hazy look. Her parents had been killed in an accident not long ago, a month ago, and she still couldn't recover from the grief. Christopher sat down next to his wife and took her hand. "You need a distraction," he said affectionately. "You're suffering so much because of your parents, and you can't bring them back. You might as well cry. Maybe a new job would keep you busy, help you calm down. We have a child. We must try to pull ourselves together, at least for the sake of our beloved daughter, for Christina's sake." At that time, Kelly had no idea that her husband was preparing a trap for her, from which only a miracle can escape. A month after the clinic opened, Nika was accused of selling drugs. From somewhere, there were witnesses and evidence. The criminal investigation went off without a hitch, and Kelly went to jail for 10 long years. There was a new surprise waiting for her at the transit station. A blow to the head with something heavy with the words, "Hello from Chris." As she fainted, Kelly even rejoiced that the nightmare of her life was about to end. "But I had to go back." "Are you awake?" A woman's voice asked her cheerfully as Kelly opened her eyes and moaned in pain. "You're lucky. Now live. Now live." That's it. No pathos, no angels with trumpets, just a husky voice and 2 short words. She never knew who had said it. Could it really have been an angel? All these memories flashed through her brain in less than a couple of minutes. The woman came back to reality and saw the enemy standing in front of her. She had once called him her husband. "And you've already put me away, hubby," she laughed. "Do you really want to do it again? Aren't you afraid?" The chief physician looked at the woman, seemingly calm and expressionless. But Kelly could see the large beads of sweat forming on his forehead. His knuckles, the way he leaned on the table, turned white and cracked his skin. "Don't kill me," he said hoarsely. "I didn't know you were." You were supposed to be. His voice became almost pathetic, like he was afraid to cry. You died a long time ago, I know that. They told me it was all right. I didn't know. I didn't know that you survived. Kelly threw me a scornful look. I couldn't have died. I didn't want to give you that pleasure. Sit down. I won't kill you. I have something else in store for you. The ex-husband looked back at the window. It wasn't really that high. The floors were low. It's an old building. If you fall right. Drunks fall out of windows sometimes, not a scratch afterwards. You can try. If you jump from the third floor, you'll crash. But that's if you're lucky. Kelly guessed his intentions. But there's a lawn down there that'll cushion the impact, and you'll probably just be crippled for the rest of your worthless life. Your silicone doll will leave you instantly, of course, and you'll be alone, broken and miserable. Maybe even quit drinking and get hooked on something else. Or maybe you'll start mixing it up. You'll have your reasons, no doubt about it. The constant pain, the infirmity. You won't even be able to go to the bathroom by yourself. Viper. The chief physician growled with fury. Tears, large and searing tears of rage, covered his eyes. And also, Kelly continued almost dreamily, deep down in your black, vile little soul, you will hope that a cocktail of alcohol and something forbidden will one day finish you off. But it won't. And you know why? Because that's where I come in. I can't leave the father of my own daughter in this kind of trouble. She smiled, but her smile was more like a predatory grin. Risen from the dead, the forgotten ex-wife will solemnly return to your, and in fact, to her own home, to her unhappy husband. Everyone will applaud my selflessness. She returned to take care of her disabled husband. But know this, you bastard, I will make your life a living hell. Day after day, night after night, I'll drive you out of the world, and no one will suspect a thing. So, Kelly made herself comfortable in the chair and put her hands behind her head. Think again before you jump out. Personally, I'd rather confess and go to jail. What makes you think I'm going there? The chief doctor grumbled. You can't prove anything, never. She raised her eyebrows in surprise. I can't. Then why are you shaking like a coward? Sit down, I said. He obeyed. Slowly, as if under hypnosis, he sank into the chair and looked frightened at his ex-wife. What's going to happen now? He asked with tears in his voice. He was trembling and sweat was dripping down his temples. It was unpleasant to watch. Kelly took the recorder out of her pocket and put it on the table. Tell me about what happened, she said as she sat down in the chair across from me. Chris looked into Nikki's eyes and realized that there was no mercy to be expected from her. So he rubbed his forehead, took a couple of deep breaths, and then he lit a cigarette and started talking. I was a loser, he said in an almost calm voice, and exhaled a puff of smoke into the ceiling. I knew my vices would ruin me, but I couldn't stop. I'm a gambler. They say addiction to games, that it doesn't matter what you play. Slot machines, thimbles, cards. They say that's silly. I, for one, like cards. It's, you might say, my only love. Alas, there is no such profession. A card player. A hustler, yes, but that's not it. Cheating is just dirty cheating. You're one to talk, Kelly snorted. The head doctor looked at her with surprise. You wanted me to tell you everything. I do. Tell me how you put me in jail. Not to spout your memoirs here. Whatever you say, he shrugged. When you're 30 and you have no persistence, no talent, I gambled, hoping for a good win. I hardly had any money, which was no surprise. What I earned I squandered quickly, and I didn't earn much. And it wasn't my thing to work my ass off, so that in 10 or 15 years, if I was lucky, I could get dividends. I am an adventurer by nature. I need everything at once. But I wasn't very lucky at cards. But in love, too much. Girls liked me, and one day I thought that too. Well, kind of a good card. Play it right, and you get it all. But as luck would have it, the girls were beggars. almost like me. They were greedy for money, for cheap pleasures. They were fun, but I didn't need them for my future. And then I had a chance. A girl from a rich family, naive to the point of foolishness. It would take a couple of nights to seduce her. I was suddenly very lucky. Her parents had died, and her wife had all their money. I had to act while she was still reeling from the shock. I suggested that she open her own clinic. On the whole, my goals had been achieved. Money, welfare, and now even stability. People are always sick, which means that the clinic will not close, if properly put the case. There was only one thing to do: put my wife somewhere else. I came up with a plan. And then I got rid of my wife. I could get a divorce, but then I'd be left with nothing. And that would be unpleasant. So then I decided to frame my darling other half in a drug trafficking case. When the chief physician was led out of the office in handcuffs, none of the staff felt any distress. "Hello, how are you today?" Kelly asked, leaning over to the rescued man. Even as head physician and owner of the clinic, she made sure to take a moment every day to check on her first patient. Sick people are different. Kelly knew that well. Some complain endlessly, some suffer in silence, but it makes them angry. And then there are those who are determined to make a full recovery. And such people always try to maintain a good mood. Her patient was just such a patient. He always greeted Kelly with a broad smile and noted the slightest improvement in his well-being. She already knew his name was Ben, and he was a police officer, and the stab wound was revenge for. "It doesn't matter what for," he answered evasively. "It's our job. That's why I never married, you know. So I wouldn't leave my wife a widow. Now I think I shouldn't have. When you have a family, you have someone to look out for, don't you? Do you have a family?" Kelly smiled. It was clear to her now that Ben was doing his whole long monologue just to find out if she was married. Well, that wasn't surprising. After a week in the hands of experienced beauticians and makeup artists, no one would recognize the spectacular woman as yesterday's homeless woman. "I have a daughter," she answered. "She's a big girl now, almost 12 years old." He smiled and touched the bandage on his stomach. "Will you introduce me to her when I get better? I always dreamed of having a daughter. Besides, I owe you my life. I just—" No, Ben interrupted her. "Please don't mind. I won't take no for an answer anyway. Don't even think about it. And you're sure you can talk me down?" Kelly winked. "And if I can't?" Then Ben was not confused. "I will appear under your balcony every evening and sing serenades. And recite poetry, too. If you only knew how disgusting my singing is. Honestly, you'll have to accept my gratitude to stop this outrage." "All right," Kelly said with a sigh. "Just don't give me candy, okay? I can't stand candy." "I won't," he promised solemnly. "I'm still a wreck now, of course, but afterward, when I'm human again, I'll invite you and my daughter to the best restaurant." And suddenly, Kelly felt that, indeed, she wanted them to meet. It was even strange. She had for so long, for so terribly, unbearably long, forbidden herself to even think about personal happiness. The price she had already had to pay once for her love had been too high. But now, in Ben's smile, in the warmth that seemed to emanate from him in waves, in his words, there was something that made Nika think, what if this time is lucky? She suddenly felt like a frivolous, laughing 20-year-old girl with no grief in her life. And she wanted, as in her youth, to charm and flirt, to walk under the stars, and for Ben to walk her home after her walk. And then a long kiss at the porch, and not be able to part until tomorrow. Nonsense, she sternly reprimanded herself. "Stop it, Kelly, don't be silly." But for some reason I asked out loud, "Will it be a date?" Ben, a little taken aback by such directness, laughed. "If you like," he answered, and bowed playfully to Nika, just as much as the tight bandage would let him. And Kelly, succumbing completely to the mischief that had taken possession of her, suddenly suggested, "You know what, Ben? We don't have to wait for a full recovery. Why don't you come to my office after dinner? It's not a restaurant menu, but I think we can order a pizza. Will you come? She noticed 2 pink blotches on his cheekbones and immediately felt uncomfortable. Don't think, she murmured. I didn't mean anything by it. But his usual self-confidence had already returned to him. No, he grinned. That's a pity, but I'll come anyway. I will. The morning came somehow very unexpectedly. Nikki had had enough nights in her life that seemed endless, but those nights were filled with deafening and bottomless despair, frustration, pain. This night was different. Kelly didn't want it to end, but the sun's rays were already tickling her eyelids, calling her to open her eyes and start a new day. Ben slept peacefully, and Kelly was pleased to note that he looked much better than the day before. The painful pallor was gone, and the blue under his eyes was gone. It's true what they say, love is medicine, she thought, and carefully, trying not to wake the sleeper, she slipped out of the embrace. But as soon as she tried to stand up, Ben's hands pulled her back into place. Where are you going from me? He asked with a laugh. It's still early. For some reason, Neka felt very ashamed. Oh, I wish he hadn't come yesterday. What was that all about? What he must be thinking of her now. You're sorry about yesterday, she said without raising her eyes. I don't know what came over me. What difference does it make? He rolled over on his side and put his head in her lap. We had a good time, didn't we? Really? She smiled. Then there's no need to apologize. And by the way, girl, what? After what happened, I, as a decent man, am obliged to marry you. Kelly was about to burst into laughter at this common yet hilarious joke when she realized that he wasn't joking. Ben's gaze was serious, even tense perhaps. It contrasted strangely with the casualness of his tone. What kind of rings do you like? He asked. I think we can go get them today. White gold and diamonds. Kelly blurted out. Are you really going to marry me? I'm an ex-convict, a homeless woman, and I just put my ex-husband behind bars. Quiet, quiet. He held up both hands as if in surrender. White gold, why are you so nervous? I won't let it go, Nick, he said simply. Well, shall we go and choose the rings? I guess I have no choice, she grumbled, but in her heart she was glad. For the first time in her life, she was happy that she had no choice. No choice, she repeated, and quietly added, and thank God for that.